right, Marissa, I think we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dr. Marissa Gray. I am the Master's Program Director for Biomedical Engineering here at Brown University. And this is the Biomedical Engineering Master's Information Session. I just want to introduce a couple other people on this call. First is Trisha Chien. She is our assistant master's program director for BME, and also Victoria Bray, who works in the School of Professional Studies and can talk more about um, any administrative questions you have about the application or fee waivers or things like that. So we will get started. I do want to mention just a couple things before we dive into the BME Master's Program at Brown. First of all, this is a pretty informal session. So if you have any questions whatsoever that come up, please find the Q&A section on the Zoom toolbar, and you can type questions there. I'll probably take them periodically, but we also have Trisha and Victoria and myself that can type out answers as well. So feel free to do that at any time. And the other thing I'll mention is that all the pictures that you see here in this presentation are of our actual students and our labs and facilities and classrooms at Brown. So hopefully it gives you a good feel of the environment at Brown, even though I know that we're doing this virtually. All right. Oops. All right, so I first want to explain the structure of our biomedical engineering program. So many of you are probably used to departments, so departments of biomedical engineering, but at Brown, our biomedical engineering programs are actually part of our institute. So our Brown Institute for Biology, Engineering, and Medicine. And basically that's kind of like an umbrella entity that's a bit bigger than a department. It spans multiple departments across the School of Engineering, the Division of Biology and Medicine, and other departments on campus as well. And what that means for us is we get kind of double resources essentially. So we get resources from both the School of Engineering and both biomed, and access to a lot of different types of faculty across campus and our medical school. Now, we do have a lot of values, which we'll talk about, tradition, distinction, collaboration, and innovation. First, for falls under tradition would be, again, we are part of these two entities, the School of Engineering and the Division of Biology and Medicine. The School of Engineering was actually the oldest engineering program in the Ivy League, established in 1847. It's funny because I feel like some of the other Ivy League schools are more known for engineering, but we are the oldest program. And though we are the oldest program, our buildings are actually quite new. You can see in the picture on the left side, the building that you see there is the Engineering Research Center. I believe it was opened around 2018, so it's still relatively new, and it just has state-of-the-art lab facilities, classrooms. It has a really nice cafe and atrium area. And directly behind that building is a larger, a little bit older building called Barris and Holly that holds a lot of our offices and classrooms and lab spaces as well. And at the very edge of the very left edge, you can kind of see this smaller brick building. That is Prince Labs. So it's going to be actually a new innovation center in the next year or two. So we're actually like revamping our whole makerspace. It's called the Brown Design Workshop now, but we're revamping the whole space into making it a bit more updated, including more classrooms, including more labs spaces for our different machines. And so that's what we're doing. So that's just some really exciting news on that front. Now, on the Division of Biology and Medicine side, not to be outdone with newer buildings, this I do want to say that our division is made up of on-campus life science programs and the Albert School of Medicine as well. So we have both the biology programs and the clinical programs. And we also are building a new life sciences building that is downtown from our campus. So downtown meaning it's about a 5 to 10 minute shuttle ride away from the main part of campus, which is called like College Hill, because we're up on the hill across the river from downtown. All right. So, what kind of sets us apart from other programs? So, there are tons of really great master's programs and biomedical engineering programs across the country. And I feel like each of them has their own different flavors. And so, I think that there's a few things that sets Brown apart. First of all, we're a relatively small to medium size program, and I'll talk more about the size in a bit. But though we are small and competing against much bigger state schools, we are actually quite high in the rankings for scholarly research and especially in interdisciplinary cutting edge research. We also are highly ranked on the percentage of master's degrees awarded to women, and we have a really nice scale of the different types of people that we have in our program. So we have a lot of faculty for our students. You can kind of see the scales here between the core faculty, postdoc staff, and our students. Also, for those that might not be aware of where we're located, we are actually located in Providence, Rhode Island, which is the smallest state in the US. Though we are the smallest state, I feel like there's so much to do here, and we can talk a little bit more about that in a bit. If you're still not knowing where Providence and Rhode Island is, we are very close to Boston. That's the closest big city to us. It's about 50 miles or about an hour train ride away. And then about less than 200 miles, 180 miles, or maybe like a less than 3 hour train ride to New York City. Notice I said the train rides and not necessarily driving times because those vary widely with traffic. But my point is that you can easily get to Boston, New York. We're nestled kind of in between there, with access to a lot of beaches, there's mountains nearby, a lot of outdoor space as well. All right, and here's just a little bit more. Here's some pictures about Providence. Providence is a pretty small city. You can kind of see in that middle picture there, it has like this man-made little river running through it. That's what I mean by Brown's main campus is on kind of the right side of the river, and the medical school is on like the left side on this picture of the river. And not being from Providence, I can say that it's very pleasant and charming. There's like a ton of really great festivals and food and lots of attractions, lots of things to do. So it is a really nice, like small city. You kind of get the best of both worlds, a smaller city feel, but easily accessible to mountains, hiking, beaches, those sorts of things. All right, so I'm going to pass it off to Trisha to talk a little bit more about um, collaboration and our program.
Yeah, first of all, let me introduce myself a little bit. My name is Tricia Tian. I'm the Assistant Director for the Master Program BME at Brown. I'm also relatively new to Brown. I started last September. So I'm learning during the process, and I found, just like Marissa said, Brown is very unique in the sense of that is relatively small. That means we have a really high faculty to student ratio. So personally, when I teach my courses, I really know my students really well. Some of them are master's students, some of them are undergraduates, but I know them not just about their current problems or issues inside the classroom, but also talk about their career planning and also their struggles so that we can help them. So I just want to emphasize that again. But now I want to talk about the collaboration. On this slide, what you can see is our core faculty and also those faculty are associated with our BME program. As Dr. Gray mentioned earlier, we are a institute, so we are under the umbrella of the IBEAM, where we have faculty coming from School of Engineering, and those faculty work on different areas we're going to touch on later. But because of the intrinsic feature associated with BME is quite interdisciplinary, so I think the collaboration is already naturally there. But on top of that, I think is because of two factors. First factor is the collaboration among our faculty on campus, and also beyond campus are the hospital clinical setting that Dr. Gray mentioned, and we'll touch on again later. But beyond that, I want to talk about one example of our master students, who is our current master students, also a TA for my class this semester. His name is William. He's a second year master student in BME, and he's currently starting a startup company with a Ph.D. student in the BME program in Dr. Anita Shukna's lab. If you're interested, there's a story reading about them from the Brown News. But what I want to talk about is this unique experience for our master student, how they met with each other is through a course. So they talk to each other because one has the expertise on the technical part, the PhD student, Alec, and then our master student who came from a industry background. So that's the collaboration even beyond just faculty. It actually happens in the classroom setting. And that's the distinction, I think, again, is the students. The students are the phenoms of our university. So that's the collaboration level one. Collaboration level two is the faculty member we mentioned here. And some of the faculty, later when I talk about their research area, we'll touch on again. So if you're interested about how we collaborate, I hope that story helps you. Okay. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. So when it comes to research, again, I think BME is quite interdisciplinary. We have to choose several of them, and we picked five, I think, research pillars that we are going to touch on, but definitely it is beyond that. The first one is neuroengineering and neurotechnology. Because our institute also has collaboration with faculty members in neuroscience, brain science, and there's a Center for Brain Science at Brown. So for those research, they are developing technologies that interface with the neural system to understand brain functions and treat neurological disorders. So this include the neural implants, brain-computer interfaces. I think that's one big area in our engineering, and there is a professor, I think is emirate in the future, but that big brain interface platform he built is well known. And also we study about the neuroprosthetic systems that restore lost motor sensory functions. So there are research in that realm. Based on my short period of time here at Brown, I know Dr. David Borden works in that area. Dr. John Wan Lee is also a very active researcher in this area. And we have a lot of master students in their research group. The next one we're going to touch a little bit is biosensors and the bioplatforms. I think Dr. Gray also work on that area. This has collaboration, I think, also is electrical engineering. So if you come to Brown for BME, you will notice that we have students within the School of Engineering who sometimes double major, but you can also take courses in other engineering concentrations, such as electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. So biosensor and bioplatforms can be a good example there. So those are focusing on devices and engineered biological platforms to detect biological signals, such as molecular level, cell level, or on the physiological changes in the whole body level. And two examples of our professor I want to talk about is Professor Anubhav Tripathi. He has a lot of research and funding from industry, so they do a lot of research that is very practical. And then our dean, Professor Tijo Desai, also has research in that area. And the third one is mechanobiology and biomechanics. This one is how mechanical forces interact with the physical properties to influence our either cells or tissue or disease progression. And the two professors or three professors I want to talk about here is Professor Ying Wang, Professor Eric Darling, Professor Vikas. And all of them are, some of them are with School of Engineering, some of them are in other departments. So that speaks about the collaboration again. And there are two other ones I'm going to talk collectively here is tissue engineering and the biomaterials. I think those are tangled together because when you talk about tissue engineering, inevitably you need to choose materials. And we have Professor Rimondo, Professor Corinne Klomb working on tissue engineering, and Professor Michelle Dawson, and our dean again. All of them are working on one or two of those areas. Uh, so next slide. I think Marissa, you will take, yeah, up here.
All right. So I do want to just mention a little bit more. Thank you so much, Dr. Tian, for giving us an overview of our research. And again, if we had to put our research in buckets, those would be the 5 areas, but our research really is much more broad than just those 5 buckets. But I wanted to just point out a couple of specific researchers. I know that Dr. Chian had talked about them as well. And I think maybe I'll start with, maybe I'll do the bottom row today. And I'll start all the way to the left with, this is Edith Mathiowicz, and she does a lot of work with drug delivery systems and different methods of drug delivery. So the picture above her picture is about different vesicles that she generates for drug delivery purposes. Next to her is Dr. Greg J. He is one of our clinical faculty. He actually works in the Department of Emergency Medicine, but he does a lot of work with different types of like tissue engineering, but also works on things like arthritis and gout and very important infections and diseases. So he does he has a full research lab as well. And then the two professors next to him, Dr. Dawson and Dr. Wong, Dr. Michelle Dawson and Dr. Ian Wong, both do different types of work with cancer research. So Michelle Dawson is more looking into, I would say, tissue engineering, but looking into the different mechanics behind cancer, and as does Dr. Wong, who might be a little bit more on the material side of that. So those are two of our kind of like our more tissue engineering. We also have next to Dr. Wong in the middle there, Dr. Diane Hoffman Kim. She does more nerve tissue engineering. So she is in our neuroscience department, and she does a lot of tissue engineering applications, but more towards nerves. And you'll see that we have like other folks that do tissue engineering, but more applied towards cardiac biomechanics. And we also have people that do biomaterials research and things like that as well. So I'm going to skip all the way. I'm still on the bottom. I'm going to skip all the way to the right. Maybe the second from the right. We'll go with Braden Fleming. He's also clinical faculty. He works in the Department of Orthopedics. Our Department of Orthopedics, BME faculty, they work both with orthopedic biomechanics, but also a little bit more soft tissue. So, Dr. Fleming, he works more with the soft tissue biomechanics. So, he does a lot with ACL and MCL repair, and he actually has an FDA approved, he helped develop an FDA approved new ACL repair technique called the BEAR technique. If anybody is super interested in that field, he's a pioneer in that. So, take a look at him. And just at the very end, to the right, Dr. Lee Hochberg, who Trisha had mentioned before, Dr. Chien had mentioned before, he really helped pioneer the implantable devices and brain-computer interface. He runs a multi-institutional program called BrainGate, where they first started doing that. Since then, there's many other groups that do that, but he's really a pioneer in the field as well. So he is a Brown faculty. He also works at, he's a full-time physician at Massachusetts General Hospital as well. So lots of connections, lots of connections here. It's, and just on collaboration, I know that Dr. Chan talked about this as well, but just to kind of wrap up, like how collaborative we are, not only within Brown and between students, or between students and faculty or other faculty, but we also have all these different departments and clinics that we can draw on. So again, the School of Engineering, I personally work a lot with the computer science department, especially for those that might work on like AI or imaging applications. We have our Biomed Center, which is part of the Division of Biology and Medicine, Rhode Island Hospital, which is probably the main hospital that our clinicians do work in, the Providence VA, a lot of our neuro folks do work there, and Butler Hospital, or a lot of neuroscience and neuroengineering folks do work there as well. All right. So now I'll talk a little bit more about our students and programs. So our biomedical engineering program is primarily for students with backgrounds in engineering, physics, applied math, computer science, data science, or other quantitative disciplines. But that doesn't mean, if you have a life science background, that doesn't mean that you aren't a good fit for our program. We usually typically require some more prerequisite courses. So that would be a full math sequence through to differential equations, and also, so calculus through to differential equations. And also, we have other requirements include at least physics and maybe 1 to 3 physics, engineering, or math courses beyond physics. So if you have any questions whatsoever about your background, please let me know. And you can send me an email. I can take a look at a list of courses, or if you have an unofficial transcript, and I can give you a good recommendation. If you wouldn't be, if you wouldn't necessarily have this background for our program, you would probably most certainly qualify for our program in biotechnology, which is a very similar program to us. It just doesn't require some of the engineering work, but you still have access to some of the engineering classes and faculty. So it's kind of a little bit of the best of both worlds. So I might refer you to that program as well. Another really great thing about our program is that students can customize their program based on interests and aspirations. So really, you get to build your own program. And we do also have something called an open curriculum. So we have very few course requirements. specific course requirements, which can be a little overwhelming at first, but you have myself and Dr. Chien to kind of really help you uh, form your own program that's going to look different from everybody else in the program because you get to customize it. And you can choose different courses between engineering, biology, and other related fields, computer science, data science, public health, neuroscience, those types of disciplines. And you can also choose between hospital-based or department-based faculty for research if you're interested in research. All right, so our students and programs. So currently we have a little over 60 students in our master's program. So we're again about a medium-sized program. Most students are full-time, but we definitely have part-time options. We have two different types of programs. We have the Master's of Science, which is thesis-based. So we have two tracks there, a research track and a design track. And then we have a Master's of Engineering, which is coursework based. So it's non-thesis. So you basically just take courses. Um, and we do have a co-op program that's actually available in all programs and tracks. It's definitely easier to do in the Masters of Engineering, but for those that still want to do a co-op in the Masters of Science program, we have students that definitely make that work. You just have to kind of pre-plan a lot and work with your advisor on that. All right, so I will pause here for just a minute. There might be a question in the chat. Yes, this is probably the most popular question we get. And I do kind of leave this for the middle of the presentation, but we will talk about funding opportunities in probably 5 minutes or so. So we will have lots of information on that. And um, if submitted, another question is, if submitted, would GRE scores be considered in the admissions process? Yes. So we say that, so I'm about to talk about the application right now. So we say that if you have GRE scores and you want to submit them, please do. That gives us another data point to take a look at. But if you don't have GRE scores, you don't have to submit them. And you're not penalized for that at all. If you have them, you can submit them. Even if you have them and maybe you don't want to submit them, that's okay too. It's really up to you. All right. So I don't know, Victoria, if you want to go a little bit over the application process.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So, I'm just gonna first and foremost bring up our program finder page, which really outlines the whole application process for all of our master's programs. And it's a great reference page for folks to be able to look at to see, what are our dates, what are our deadlines. But I think I'll run through those requirements really quickly. And then if folks have any additional questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. So for biomedical engineering, we're going to require, and for all of our programs, we require your transcripts. Of course, your unofficial transcripts are fine for the purposes of reviewing your application. If you end up enrolling at Brown, we'll have you follow up with an official transcript and a credential evaluation if you attended an institution outside of the United States. But for the purposes of your application, your unofficial transcripts are totally fine. So your transcripts should come from anywhere that you've attended after secondary school. So they should really outline any coursework you've taken in any programs after high school. That gives us a good idea of if you transferred universities, what are the grades that you got in that original university? Those aren't always reflected on your current university transcript or if you switched universities. So that's your transcript. Your letters of recommendation for the external applicants, we require 3 letters of recommendation. I know that we have some Brown University current students on the call who are going to apply for the 5th year version of our program. For current Brown undergraduate students, we only require 2 letters of recommendation. But again, the vast majority of the folks on the call, we're going to require 3 letters of recommendation from you. They can come from professional and or academic sources. I would definitely encourage, for early career folks, for folks who are still in college, academic letters of recommendation are great. great. If you're a few years out, I think subbing in some letters of recommendation for folks who've supervised you, worked with you on projects, those can be really valuable as well. So the GRE is not required, like Marissa was saying. You can submit it. We'll consider GRE scores, but for our School of Engineering programs, we are not requiring the GRE. Your TOEFL IELTS. So if we have folks on the call who don't speak English as a native language, we're going to require you to submit either the TOEFL or the IELTS to satisfy our English language proficiency requirements. We will waive that requirement if you have a degree or if you will have a degree, if you're a current undergraduate student, from an institution where English is the sole language of instruction. So, for example, if you speak Spanish as your native language, but you attended an institution or university for your degree program in the United States, Australia, the United Kingdom, English-speaking parts of Canada, you would not need to submit English language proficiency exam scores because we waive that requirement based off of that institution that you attended. However, if English isn't your native language and you attended an institution where English is not the language of instruction, we do need you to submit either the TOEFL or the IELTS scores taken within the last 2 years, and those are the only two exams that we can accept to satisfy that English language proficiency requirements. You'll submit a personal statement as well, outlining your goals, your experiences, really just an opportunity for you to be able to introduce yourself as an applicant, as a candidate for the program. It's one of the only opportunities as well that you have for us to be able to get a sense of your writing skills, your communication skills. So make sure that you treat it as such. Make sure you're treating it as a professional document, proofreading it, making sure you're answering the prompt. Those are some of the most important pieces of advice I'll give you. So yeah, I think that's it for application requirements. You've got the dates and deadlines in front of you as well. So right now we are targeting for fall. So the final deadline for fall for external applicants is going to be April 15th. However, the sooner you apply, the sooner you'll get an admission decision from us. And I would definitely encourage you, if you're applying for fall, if you need to do things like go through our visa process, applying early is always a good thing because it just gives you more time to be able to get on housing wait lists, start the visa process, and all of those things that can take a little bit more time. We do have a spring start option as well for biomedical engineering. Of course, we're deep into the spring semester. We'll be in contact with folks who are interested in applying for the spring once that spring application opens, hopefully in July.
Yes, yes. So again, our application deadline is April 15th, but please, if you can submit now, we usually try to get decisions to you within a few weeks. So please submit whenever you would like, but up until April 15th. The other thing I wanted to mention, a couple more things about the application, is that one question I get, Victoria, a lot is if students can submit their letters of recommendation through Interfolio. And the answer, I believe, is no. We usually need to have them come directly from the recommender. Is that correct?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is when you submit your application, you'll identify three recommenders, and then we'll generate a link to go to their email addresses for them to be able to submit their letter of recommendation. So that's our preferred process for submitting letters of recommendation. Of course, if your recommenders are having technical issues, if you're having technical issues, you can always be in contact with us and we can try to figure out alternate arrangements. But Marissa's exactly right. We cannot accept letters of recommendation directly from students.
Um, and the other thing on the personal statement, and just as kind of a member of several different application review committees, is that we really just want to hear about you and your experiences and why you like biomedical engineering, why you want to come to Brown for the program, why you want to get a master's. You don't have to have like necessarily specific details about like what you're going to do, because I know that those tend to change, like it definitely did for me. But we want to hear specific details. So please don't worry about being, eloquent necessarily or weaving a fancy story in your personal statement. We want to know more about you and your experiences and specific skills that you have, or like skills you want to learn a little bit more. I think that's really interesting to us. The personal statements are my favorite part of an application to read. And that being said, I would be very careful with AI tools with personal statements. I think that again, those details that we're looking for can get lost in that. So please, like I said, doesn't have to be eloquent. Just if you want to tell us more about yourself, like that's a really great place to do that, is in your personal statement. Right. I wasn't sure if we had another oh, we do have another question. All right, let's see.
I was just typing an answer. It's about
Ah,
somebody who's interested in next year admission for fall 2027 and when that application opens. So I'll just answer it out loud now that we're talking. But
yeah.
the application for fall 2027, generally our fall application opens on September 1st. We might open earlier this year, but we will be in contact with anybody in our system who has a interest in biomedical engineering. So by attending the session, we would email you when that application opens just to let you know that the application's open and that you're welcome to start applying. But that process will start in late summer of this year.
Yeah, and fun fact, our deadlines are usually the same. So it's February 1st, April 15th. That's typically our priority deadline is February 1st. But if you we're obviously past February 1st right now. If you didn't make the February 1st deadline, that's totally fine as well. Your application gets reviewed regardless and to the same criteria. So yeah, so uh, please submit your applications. And if you're submitting next year, that's great too. All right. So speaking of applications, if you're interested in applying, which I hope, and it sounds like many of you are, we can pay for your application. So we will give you just by attending. So you all registered for this, or at least if you were joining the call, you had registered. If you're registered, you will automatically get a fee waiver just by attending, and so that will be applied to your account. Um, Victoria, did you have anything to add on that?
No, not necessarily. If you have any technical issues, you can reply to the emails that you received about this event, and we can help troubleshoot if you run into any technical issues, but it should be automatic, like Marissa was saying.
Yeah, sometimes like if you're using a slightly different email or things like that or a different email,
Hmm.
that might um, trigger something that you won't have the fee waiver applied, but usually it runs pretty smoothly. Just reach out to us if you have any problems. All right, so I want to chat a little bit more about our program options. Um, we currently have 60 students in our program. I have 70 here, but it's supposed to be 60. And again, the students can customize their curriculum. And so I want to talk about our different options. So I'm going to start with the Masters of Science first. So the Masters of Science in research track is kind of your traditional master's program. So it's typically a 2-year program, so 4-semester program. It is thesis based. It's usually a project that's done with a dedicated project that's done with a professor in a research area of your choice. Um, you do have to take, so the master's program in general is 8 courses. You do have to take 5 structured courses, 2 of which have to be in biology topics and 2 have to be in engineering. But we are really flexible on what the definition of engineering and biology are. So, for example, for engineering, I count engineering courses, but I also count um, applied math, physics, computer science, data science, those types of topics. And on the flip side, for biology, I typically count neuroscience, uh, public health, any other life science programs as well. So lots to choose from. The remaining 3 courses can be structured courses or they can be independent lab-based research courses to help with your thesis. So you can take up to 3 of those. Many of my students end up taking 1 or 2, but you have 3 as an option. Now, for the design, still in the Masters of Science program, it's very similar, except for it's more of a design-based project. So right now, we actually have a student in the design track who's working with a professor, a research professor, actually in mechanical engineering, Dr. Monica Wilhelmus Martinez, and they are working on uh, different devices for breastfeeding because Dr. Martinez is a fluid mechanics professor. That's her specialty, and so that's just an example of a design project. So it's very similar. You have an in-depth design project, but you also can work with clinicians and go into the field and do a lot of user-based design. And you can also spend your time trying to commercialize the project. Dr. Chan had talked about a startup before, so you can definitely do this within the design track as well. So that's the design track. And then we have the Masters of Engineering, which is fairly simple. It's 8 structured courses. It's really great for part-time students to do that. We also can do thesis based with part-time students. It's just a little bit trickier, but we can talk about that as well. All right, so here's where I feel like a lot of students have some questions on our financial options. So, as is with most master's programs in the US, our program is largely self-funded, but we have several different partial funding mechanisms. First is that we have limited merit-based and need-based scholarships that can cover 1 to 2 courses. So if we have 8 courses, you would only be paying for 6 or 7 courses based on the scholarship that you can get. For need-based scholarships, it's really important if you fill out one of 2 forms. So if you're a domestic student, you're going to want to submit the FAFSA form to us. And if you are an international student, you're going to want to submit your CSS profile, which is through the College Board. We have more information about that on our website, but that is something that's really important because that will help us assess your financial need and help us award these need-based scholarships. We also have supplemental TA-ships, which are partial TA-ships and partial research assistantships. Our TA-ships are about $2,500 per semester per course for 5 hours per week. And the RA-ships really depend on your advisor if they have funding for that. Typically, they range from $2,500 to $5,000 stipends. So we do have those available. We also have outside scholarships. We have a big long list on our website, so please take a look at that. And something that I would say the vast majority of master students do is they have on or off campus job opportunities. So for international students, you'd have to have on campus job opportunities, but there are many of those, not just in our own program, but across departments and across the school. I have one master student right now that's working at the Swearer Center that does a lot of community outreach and volunteering programs, and she loves it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a position within engineering. So there's a lot of great positions out there. We also have something for those in the research track called the academic subtrack. I'm actually changing the name, calling it the Pathway to the PhD program and summer research program. So there's summer research stipend. So this is a $5,000 stipend for those. You can apply to this, and it's for those who are specifically looking to apply to PhD programs in the future. And so that's typically granted in your summer between your first and second year. So that's a $5,000 summer research stipend. And then I feel like probably the most important piece of this is our co-op program that is growing in popularity. So we have probably around 8 to 10 students that complete this each year. So I would say up to maybe 25% of our program ends up doing the co-op program. And this is where you spend 6 months in an industry role. Um, it's kind of like an extended internship. And so that I'll talk a little bit more about in the next couple of slides, but you get to keep all the salary that you make from that job. So it's basically you are working full time and depending upon if you're a domestic or international student, you may have to take another course or you may want to take another course on top of that, but we can talk about that a little bit more. Okay, oops. Yes, so here's the co-op slide. So all programs and tracks have this option. Again, if you're in the Masters of Science track, um, you'll want to look and plan early for this. We also have the School of Professional Studies. We have a really great Center for Career Excellence that they have a like co-op prep program, which is very cool and exciting that they started this year to help you get co-ops. And so basically, you can earn a salary and gain industry experience while you get course credit, which is really great. Our salaries typically range, I would say, anywhere from more like 30,000 to even 40,000 for 6-month positions, which is really, really pretty great. I actually teach the co-op course this semester. So it's been, I think, a really good experience, industry experience, but also it helps you financially as well. Again, these are 6-month positions. We have lots of resources to help you get these positions. We have relationships with companies like Pfizer that give co-ops just to Brown students, but we also encourage you to apply on your own as well. So this semester, I have students who've kind of done both. They've applied. Some have got their internships or their co-ops by applying on their own, and some have gotten them through our connections, like with the Pfizer program. All right. And this slide is just meant to say that our master's students tend to publish a lot. So they do excellent research. We have around 8 to 10 students publishing every year, which is great because usually the publications don't necessarily go through just because of timing until the year after the student has graduated. That's typically pretty common, but we do have lots of different publications. I think we had 9 students who published, which is great. Now, where do our students go after graduation? So around 50%, I would say 60, about 2/3, 60% go into industry. I would say of that 60%, around 50% the majority of those go into research and development positions, but there are lots of other positions, quality positions. I just had a student graduate in February that's in a quality role and actually really loves it. Regulatory affairs, IP, consulting, those sorts of things. Around 20 to a quarter of our students go on to PhD programs or maybe other research positions. And then we do have a small amount that go on to medical school as well. So really, whatever you'd like to do, we can make it happen. So if you just let us know your career goals early when you know them, we can kind of craft a really great program for you. And here are just some companies that hire our recent graduates. A lot of them are in the Northeast just because of our location, but we have lots of students that get jobs across the country and even get co-ops across the country. So last semester, I had a student who had a co-op in Ohio. So that was one example. We have a lot of students that go to California for different jobs as well, and anywhere in between. And for our programs that are our students who are interested in PhD programs are being accepted to. Brown is one of them, but we also have many other institutions. So we do have students that transition from a master's to a PhD at Brown. And you do get a little bit of a step ahead because you know the faculty and you know the research, but we also have those master students apply with the larger PhD pool as well and encourage them to apply to other programs. So we have students that when I first started 6 or 7 years ago, they graduated and went to Northeastern, as he's actually graduating this year, and Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, Duke, lots of different schools. All right, so I'm actually going to pass this to Dr. Chien to talk about because I want her to talk about the class she's teaching right now, but also want to talk about how just there's so many different classes to choose from. It's almost overwhelming, but we are here to help you pick courses.
Yeah, so let me start with the course I'm teaching this semester, which has been very rewarding, both for me, but also for the students who registered. So this course is trying to teach biomedical mechanisms or areas such as biomedical imaging, drug delivery, biosensor, pharmacology, with the focus in industry. So prepare the students, whoever is interested in a specific area, going into functional roles in the industry. So we start with industry mapping because what we figured is that sometimes students are not equipped with the language or even the vocabulary to talk to industry professionals. So we have invited the speaker to specifically focus on introducing those functional roles in general to our students. So far, I think that was the part or the invited speaker talk resonate with all the students because majority of them do not have that language or vocabulary. And then after that, they step into more in-depth exploration on each area that I mentioned as modules. But also we line up with invited speaker from each area to talk about their day-to-day life, the responsibility, the hard skills, soft skills that are required for someone to get into that area as an entry-level student. Uh, so with that said, on top of this course, we also have other courses in other department. We have courses in the School of Engineering, but also from biology, as well as neuroscience, medicine. Again, depends on your interest, right? Some students might have a interest in startup companies, entrepreneurship. If that's your interest, based on that five required, I guess, biology and engineering courses, you can select other courses. And like Dr. Gray said, we're here to help you to figure that out. But we're listing some of the courses here for your interest, just to show you that there are so many choices for you to select based on your own interest. For students who really don't have any idea, when you come into our program, we can sit with you to explore that together, right? So we're also just here to mentor based on your personal interest, background, and future career goal. So yeah, I think that's all I want to cover for now.
Thank you so much. Yes. So we have lots of different courses to choose from. Again, sometimes it can be overwhelming, but we're here to help really craft a program that's just yours. That will help you achieve your career goals. All right, so we have about 5 minutes left for questions. If you have any, please feel free to write them in the chat. But our highlights here is that we're a relatively small program, but we have really strong mentorship. As Dr. Chan was saying in her classes, but also in lab sizes are relatively small. So you get a lot of that individual attention that I think can be lost in some of the bigger programs. We have very productive students, a really collaborative environment. We do have an opportunity for that industry experience with our co-op programs and internships. We do have internships as well, and very successful graduates. So If you have any questions, we will stay on for the next 5 minutes, but I just wanted to thank you so much for attending today. And we will be available if you want to email both Dr. Jian and myself. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
I'm just pulling open the questions that folks asked in advance of the session, Marissa, so we can address those while people are typing.
Yeah.
So one of the questions is about do I need an English proficiency test score even though I'm from an English speaking country? If your native language is English, then you would not need English proficiency exam scores.
Yes, and also if you went to an institution whose primary language of instruction is in English, and I believe you don't have to do anything extra for like applying for a waiver. We know based on your country and your school typically that you wouldn't need those
That's exactly
scores.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, so really great question about the average GPA of admitted students. So I don't know, Dr. Chian, would you like to answer the? Okay, yeah. So but the it's kind of hard because it differs every year. But what I typically like to say is we're typically looking for students with a 3.0 out of 4.0 GPA or higher. I know that that is a very Western and US type scale, and there are lots of different scales out there. But if roughly I'm the equivalent of 3 out of 4, a 3.0 out of 4.0 GPA. And if you have any questions about, maybe you're a student who goes to school in India and wants to know kind of what we look for on like the 10-point scale or there's others that have 20-point scales or 100-point scales. There's lots of different GPA scales out there. Please let me, you can also always message me and I can let you know.
I think that's it for questions. We answered all the ones that were submitted in advance throughout the session, so that was good.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining, and we hope to see your application soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.